Hello. So earlier today I did a side stream that was not really about animation control. It was more just about taking that text file processing that I did and applying it to the other text files in the engine. And then I said, well, I just ran out of ideas of what to do. But of course, it was because it was early in the morning and I wasn't fully thinking yet. There's lots of stuff to do that we mentioned in previous streams. For example, seeing this fine, large, difficult to miss comment, that we need some robustness handling when things are hot loaded, like when this animation graph changes out from under the playing animations in the game. So I'm going to handle that in this stream, hopefully. And then after that, we want to start being able to visualize what animations are playing in games. So we want to be able to bring up like a visualizer HUD that shows what the animation system is doing. And well, we might not get to that during this stream depending on how things go, but yeah. Okay. So let's start doing this. What we're going to do is on the animation graph, we're going to have something called the edit index or something. That's just an int, and we're going to say increments by 1 each time we change the graph by hot loading or via some UI, right? So anytime you make a change to the graph, you need to increment the edit index. When we reload the asset, we're going to reset the graph and graph.editIndex plus equals 1. And hopefully that compiles, and we're off to a great start. We didn't break anything with that simple change. Okay, that's good. I have some crazy reverb. No, it's you. Okay. That, yeah, don't have the stream open twice. It's not good. Let me close my web browser in case anything is happening there. Close my calculator. Calculator might be causing reverb. Okay. Well, if I remember correctly, we had some asserts in this file. Yes, okay. This big comment is the same as this big comment. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go to these asserts. So instead of having some asserts, I'm going to make a routine called recover from edits, right? And we're going to pass the graph and the state. And the invariant is going to be after recover from edits is done, then the state will point to somewhere valid in the graph. Unless, so that may not be possible if the graph has no nodes. So okay. So we're going to have recover from edits. And this is going to be really dumb to start with. And we're going to make it smarter later. So we're going to say recover from edits. Graph is a graph. State, human animation state. You know what? While we're doing all this, let's put another incomplete at the top. Not related to what we're working on, just so I remember to do it later. Generalize from human animation state to something that is more broadly applicable. This may be primarily cosmetic. Anyway, because we're writing all these routines for human animation state, but we want this to be a general system. Okay. You saw what looked like locally scoped type defs in the last stream, right or wrong. Look, a type def is just like any other declaration in this language, and declarations can happen at any scope. So yeah, you can, this is not a broken but language with regard to declarations like C is. But that's not any advanced piece of alien technology. It's like just the obvious way that things should be. So yeah. All right. So we're recovering from edits, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to just say index is state.node index. We're going to read it off. We're going to clamp index between 0 and graph.nodes.count -1. If not, graph.nodes return. So for now, my only goal so far is going to be that we don't crash when we hot load the thing. And it has different amounts of nodes, but the goal later on is going to be to maintain coherency. So that's why I'm marking this incomplete. Now, I believe I had those asserts in 2 places. Yes, so I need to do it here. Recover from edits here as well. M state. And we'll say if bang and nodes count. I have to say dot count here. I was thinking that maybe arrays should evaluate to false if they have no members. That would make sense. Okay, what did I still haven't fixed this spurious error message problem. Undeclared identifier M on line 358 because it's not called M here, it's called graph. All right. So, well, we at least shouldn't crash now if we do weird stuff. So let's go into a level with 2 guys just to get the maximum craziness. And we'll go to the state file. I restarted Emacs, so I don't have my files loaded. Animation graph file. So I'm going to delete all the states except inactive and save it. And we hot loaded it. And so I think this guy is still playing an animation. Okay, first of all, right, so it gave us a complaint about this because that's going to a non-existent state, so that's good. Okay, yeah, he doesn't know what animation to play anymore because we deleted the active state, right? But now he's inactive. This guy doesn't have an active state either. So yeah, that's working basically as we would expect. If I go and paste all this stuff, and I delete everything but active, they're just all going to get clamped into that range. So now when I perturb their animations, they're going to be stuck in the active pose, and they won't know what else to do, right? So this is a subtle animation. You can see him like breathing and whatever, and you can see the shadow moving. So yeah, that's all good. So I'm trying to think about how to test. So I'm going to write some recovery code to ostensibly keep you in the same state as you mess around with the graph. Right, like what happens? Okay, so we're back. We've got all our animations again. I want to like see if there's something easy to test for, or if I have to start implementing that viewer HUD. So like if I swap my active and inactive states, so their indices changed, but we're not out of range. So the guys are just going to get confused about which state they're in, but they're already playing the wrong animation. So I guess what'll happen is they'll play the transition that's not appropriate to their animation. I don't know. It's not particularly easy to spot us being in the wrong state right now. I'm not sure what to do about that. Maybe I should go ahead and write the necessary code anyway. I guess I'll do that because, yeah. And then we'll do the visualizer stuff to test it and make sure it's working. So remember we did this edit index up here, and well, if state.edit graph edit index, so state is going to have like, oh, this was the index the last time that I was in the graph. If state.graph edit index is not equal to graph.edit index, or if it's equal, we shouldn't have to do anything, right? We'll just assert this stuff and return. Otherwise, we will assign this to this. So here we're going to say we have graph edit index is the type of animation graph.edit index. So those are the same type. They're just int, but maybe I'll change it someday, or who knows. And should we start that as -1, or I don't know. We'll start that at 0, and yeah, the graph's always going to get set to 1 because we call reload asset on it. So let's just see what happens if that does anything wacky. I don't think it will. Yeah. So, oh, right, okay, it's changing. So when we start out and a guy's inactive, I never had very clear handling on you know, what do we do when we first start you? What state do we put you in? I have code for that, but it's old. We never changed it. And so it's not surprising that it's doing weird stuff now. Looking through the chat for a second. What about some small file format validation to detect that it is corrupted? Well, the thing is, you can edit the file and keep the format just fine. We already detect problems in the file format to some degree. We did that yesterday, right? But you can just, this is still a valid file. It's just got fewer nodes, and that can just happen. And that's what we're handling right now, right? It's different from file corruption issues. Okay, so what do we do to start? We call animate. And let's add, so one weird problem is, I believe these enums, yeah, these enums are not so great in the sense that we probably start with our thing inactive. So let's do the following. Uninitialized is 0. So that's going to be what we start with. And so this won't fire. right? Because if we start with inactive, well, that should, this should not be our current problem, but I'm going to do this anyway because it's more formal. With uninitialized, right, we log print animate error attempt to animate by setting its state to uninitialized, which should not happen. And that mesh name. Okay. So uninitialized should only be the starting state ever. Yeah. Where do I'm pretty sure I call animate somewhere. No? These are the only calls to animate. Do I call play animation directly? Or do I call... There's all sorts of like things I could be calling at this point. Change active state. Let's see who calls that. Change active. Update guy active flags. Post undo reevaluate. Okay. This is probably what happens at the start of the level. I'm pretty sure. Because level start reevaluate calls post undo reevaluate. Whoops. See. Let's get rid of that. So we are calling change active state on the guys. And change active state. So the current state, will not ever be active or inactive at this first. Now, I don't think this is actually going to solve our problem of that guy being in the T-pose. I think that's due to the new thing that I did. Oh, it did solve it. All right. Well, that's fine. Or maybe it's an uninitialized variable kind of thing and it didn't solve it. Who knows? We'll find out over time. All right. Some degree of hot load recovery. Now, that's not enough hot load recovery. So what I want to do is I want to store the guy's state name. Oh, this is going to suck. This is going to suck. We're going to do this only in developer mode. So the thing is, so normally you would say, well, let's just store the name of the state and we'll, after a hot load happens, if the states have been reordered, then we look for the state with that name, right? Well, that's fine, except that you can't point at the memory of the guy's state name in the old animation graph because that'll get freed, right? So you have to copy the state name yourself, and to do that every time you change animations on a guy is just a little bit unsavory if you do that in the shipping game, especially when it's only for development purposes. Now, if you're using one of these programming languages that's garbage collected and you never think about the heap anyway, then this is the problem that you have all the time in all your code. But we're trying to make a reasonably fast game engine here, so we're going to take care of that. But we will do it first without if-defing it out, and then, so I'm going to put another incomplete here, and I'm going to say, make sure that state name tracking does only happens in developer mode. All right. So we're going to go back to the human animation state, and we're going to say node name is a string, that's going to get ifdef, so we're going to put it down here. Saved node name for edit recovery. Okay, so we had a switch to node here is when our animation state gets set to a particular thing, and we're going to say free state.node name state.node name equals copy string of destination.name. That's fine. And then when we do a recovery, we're going to say we had a find node procedure, right? So we're going to say new node is find node in graph of state dot, what did we call it? Just node name? Just node name? Yeah. State dot node name, right? If no new node, we're going to log print recover from edits says animation graph called whatever changed and a character was in animation node whatever, but that node no longer exists in the modified graph. So graph.name state.node name, right? And in that case, we're going to say resetting to state 0. So then we're just going to say what was it called? Switch to node. We know the graph has at least one node because the nodes.count is greater than 0. So we can say switch to node graph state graph.node 0 and return. So if we're in some state and that state gets deleted, we just go to whatever is at the top of the file, which is at least a little bit predictable, right? Otherwise, let's do this. If new node, else, and we really don't need anything else. We don't need any of this stuff that we did. I'm just going to assert, oh, my mouse is running out of battery. I have to connect the annoying cable for a while. And it is annoying because it drags on the mouse. All right. All right. So that all seems good. And, you know, we're not going to have a relatively convincing visual test case for this. But we'll at least, this guy isn't going into inactive anymore. That's bothering me. Oh, it's because this animation isn't loading. Right, okay, he's going, yeah. So he's playing an animation that doesn't exist, and then, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so we've got one guy who's in the active state and one guy who's in the inactive state. And I'm going to delete the inactive state, and that message should fire, and it should put him into the active state. And then he should have his hands up, and he should have his hands out, right? So save. There we go. So first of all, it complained about an arc going to state inactive, and then it said, hey, the graph human changed and a character was in state inactive, but that node no longer exists in the modified graph, resetting to state 0. And you know what? I'm going to print the name of state 0, but now his hands are up, right? So this is good. This is good. So let's resetting to state 0. Right, so new node equals graph.node sub 0, new node. Right. New node.name. Right? So let's do that again, but let's kill the active state. First state goes away. Boom. Ha ha! Resetting to state 0, state inactive. Oh, it's so nice when you have a game engine that does things. All right. So we're going to check that in. Now, as I said, we only want that to happen in developer mode. The thing is, this is going to be interesting because I don't know if the whole game compiles in no developer. Like we have the following. This developer variable. In theory, I can set that to false, but I'm pretty sure if I set it to false, we won't compile because I haven't been maintaining that. Yeah. So we have references from things in ostensibly shipping code that go into ostensibly developer code, and that would be a project to clean up, and I'm not going to do it for a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a test variable that's anim developer, right? And I'm going to key off that and make sure it works, and then I'm going to switch it to developer. All right. So we go to Sokoban, and we're going to say if anim developer, we have the following thing. So now that should compile. And if I go here and I set this to false, now we complain because somebody's trying to use it, but it's not a member of human animation state, right? So let's make the game now compile with this set to false. So, and of course the whole point is that this named thing involves us doing dynamic memory operations that we would prefer not to in the shipping game. So node name equals, so we're going to say if anim developer, then we do this stuff, right? And then node name. So we can only do this recovery step if we're in developer mode. And so in release mode, this should never happen. So if it does, I guess we're going to log. And you know what? This graph edit index is also, even though that's not expensive, that is also a developer thing, because that shouldn't happen in release. We're not editing the animation graphs in release build. So, whoops. So we're going to say if anim developer, we do that. We do that, and we switch to node. Else we just unceremoniously do that. But we'll log. We'll log. Recover from edits. Oh, you know what? no, none of this. Okay, hold on. None of this. So this whole recover from edits should be in anim developer, because none of this makes sense. So here we go. If anim developer, we're going to do all this stuff, right? Whole routine as it was before. Else, we're going to have an alternate version of recover from edits that's much simpler and just says, you know, this, and then basically what we had before, clamp state.node index 0 graph.nodes.count. Actually, we want some logging, I think, in case something weird happens. So we'll say if state.node index is less than 0, or state.node index is greater than or equal to graph.nodes.count, log print animation graph says error node index out of range human animation state. Well, let's just, this is probably not something that's ever going to happen. So we'll just keep the error minimal for now. If we ever need to really debug that, we can deal with it. So graph.name, right? This is just at least telling us, if we see something weird, the general nature of what's happening. No, don't return. Do this. Actually, no. So let's just keep it simple, because why did my insert mode go off? So we're just going to set the node index to 0 if it goes out of range, because we want something predictable and consistent and whatnot. So that's all fine. So we've got, if we're in anim developer, which we aren't right now, then we get the full code that we just wrote. Otherwise, we get this very minimal recovery routine that's just about telling us that something went wrong. And that we just compiled with anim developer false, right? Yeah. So awesome. So we're going to set that to true right now. So we have our functionality back, and we're going to say should be collapsed back into developer when developer actually works. All right. Put recovery operation in developer on the node. Does that make sense? Do people get what I just did? I haven't been looking at the chat in a while. Can't you do anim developer equals developer? Yes, I could, but the whole point is I can't toggle developer right now. So if you only let me toggle anim developer when developer toggles, then, you know, I can't ever toggle it. So that might be a fun stream sometime, is to go through the whole engine and make developer work again, but I don't want to do that right now, because I want to stay on topic. So I had somehow assumed somewhere in my mind that recovery thing would take a long time, but it didn't. It's been like half an hour, and part of that is just me talking. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is go do these small cleanups. Oh, well, we did this one. I think I'm going to do this cleanup, which is also related to some other comment that I had down below. And then after that, it might be time to do fun graphical things, I think. So someone's already asking, will we perform a graph validity check, unavailable nodes, transitions to non-existing nodes? We already detect transitions to non-existing nodes. You can see that in yesterday's stream and a little bit in today's stream. We got that error at some point when I was editing around with it. Unavailable nodes, I don't think so, not yet. It doesn't seem like an important problem because well, first of all, the animator may want unavailable nodes as like, oh, I'm going to put this sequence over on the side and only engage it as a test, or I want it there for later. But also, I feel like it's not really going to be a problem because animation is very visual. If you put something in the file, it's because you saw it happening, right? And so it's available. That said, if these files do get really big and really complicated and hard to understand, then you might have the equivalent of dead code as like dead graph nodes, and we might want to sweep for those. But even then, like these are not, like for this game, there's going to be relatively few of these animation graphs, like 5 at most. So it's not even like that would be a resource issue. You know, I'm being sloppy about memory right now. Like I'm just newing stuff and whatever, but eventually that as well would be tightened up. The animator can already add arbitrary animation states. So going back to this file, you can just add new states. The thing is, it's not very easy for me to do for test purposes because I don't have new animations. But you know, you can add a new state with an animation or whatever. Why do I need to handle reloads at all outside developer mode? It's not handling reloads, okay? So because reloads should not happen. What we're handling here, this is called recover from edits, but what we're really doing, we're not really recovering from edits because there should be no edit. If there are edits, that's bad. That's one way that this could trip, but maybe just things get corrupted somehow. Like maybe we accidentally set our node index to 243, just unrelatedly in some piece of code. I don't know how that would happen, but maybe it would happen. And so this is just there to catch that bug, right? So recover from edits is really, it's called recover from edits, but it's really about sanity checking our index to make sure it's in range. That's all that is. Before some time ago, you made a rant on Twitter about Autodesk Maya. What is Blender 3D missing until you can use it in your studio? I don't know. I don't know what Blender 3D even does. But there is an issue that like 3D modelers are trained on specific tools and have many years of experience in those tools, and it's not very easy for them to switch, which is unfortunate, but true. So you can't just up one day and say, hey, everybody, we're going to use Blender 3D now. I mean, I suppose you could. But if the animators were into it and wanted to try it, you could. But yeah, I don't know. But I have not investigated. I don't know how it works. I mean, if it's open source, it's probably terrible because all open source end user tools are terrible because nobody in the open source community understands usability issues. But maybe it's good. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't used it. Is this system robust enough to resist some nasty error by the animation developer? That's what we've been doing, so the hope is yes. But at this point, kind of what we need to do is give it to them and put it in the field and see if there are errors that happen that we're not handling well. And there probably are, because that's always how it goes. So then he would give us a report of what's happening and we would go fix it. wasn't there animation states in code somewhere? There are, okay, so there are gameplay states in code. So these are now gameplay states. They're in this struct called human animation state, which is not good. We're about to refactor some of this stuff, but these are things that the gameplay understands. And then at some point, we translate these into messages. And these messages have a default state where we go. Actually, that's what I should do, is I should log when a message is not intercepted and when we jump to a default state, because I'm not logging that right now. So these should exist, and if they don't exist, we should pop to state 0. So let's make that more robust. That's a good point. But, you know, this is not to say that these are the only states that can exist, right? Many more states can be added, which is why we're referring to these by strings right now anyway. Okay. Let's do that. Send message. Let's take this out because our comment above says that. Okay. So if we didn't find a destination arc, okay, so we already have a message. If we try to use default attempt to, yeah. So, yeah, so here we just want to log. Let's call this animation message. Animation graph send messages. I don't know. I don't have a consistent capitalization or anything for these log agent strings. We're just going to see how that shakes out and make it consistent later. Maybe this should just be animation and everything in this file called animation. I don't know. In state no arc existed to handle message, so we are transitioning to the message's default state, whatever, comma, we're in current node, right? So in node, let's call this node whatever. No arc existed to handle message, so we are transitioning to the message's default state. Yeah, that's fine. So we should actually see this pretty often. Yeah. So we have no, for example, active to walking transition. We just lerp those. There we go. So here we should even see more. Yeah. So we'll see if this is too noisy or in my conversations with the animator, he seemed to indicate that he wants to see this stuff. All right. Am I using an off-the-shelf animation interchange file format or something custom? Something custom, because all those formats are awful, including Collada, which is ostensibly for games, but it's bad. I mean, our format is not even good. It's just a text format that we're going to post-process it into a binary format later, but right now it's a text format. And but it's at least a text format without a bunch of excessive, horrible slownesses. Wow, man, they're really sawing something over on that building in construction around the corner. Do the animation frames have an equal amount of vertices in order for them to interpolate properly? So the animations, there are generally two kinds of animations used. There's morph target animations and there's skeletal animations. So morph target animations specify where vertices go, vertex by vertex. And that's not what we're using for any of these characters right now. You might do that for facial animation on a sub-piece of a character, but you don't actually want to do that on a character broadly because it's very inefficient resource-wise, and it's just hard to specify an animation that way. You do what's called a skeletal animation instead for characters like this, which is where you have some transforms representing all the bones of the character, and those move, and then the vertices have weights that carry them along with the bones. And we're actually going to start visualizing that later in this stream, or possibly in the next stream if I break the stream to go to lunch or something. So you will see more of how that works. Why not set automatically the name of the function as a title for the log print? Because, people may not care what the function is. Like if these are messages for external people to understand, then the name of the function might be too cryptic for them. We want it to be something controlled, so that's why. Anyway, I'm going to skip the off-topic questions. Sorry, guys. On topic. So we're on this now. So basically, we've got this human animation state situation. And we really just want to change that to something called animation state that is not specific to humans. So let's see what we can do about that. So node index we need, and this anim developer stuff we need. And the guy pointer can be an entity pointer, I think. If we demote this to entity pointer, then it applies to anybody in the game. Let's see what we're using guy for. What? We don't need that because we just need state, right? Are we using guy? Okay, we're using it down there. All right, but let's see if that works. Whoa, compiler bug. Oh, so bad. So bad. What? Really? It's so weird. Okay. So what's going on here? I'm going to work around this and put a note to fix the compiler bug. So what's going on here is in the header of this procedure, we have a pointer to a human animation state. And when you have a pointer in a procedure header, because we want to compile asynchronously, we say, well, we don't need to know what a human animation state is really, because we want to be able to compile people who call this. So to call this, you just need to know it's a pointer because we know how big a pointer is. But to compile the body, we need to know, right? And so if I get at the human animation state by, like if I have a dereference from guy to animation state, then I'm putting the dependency in the right place on the compiler. But if I don't do that, then I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a fake dependency that's a very obvious line of code. I'm going to tag it with a fix me, and then that'll be a compiler bug that I fix later. So let's go back to what we were doing, where we do this. And if I'm right about what the bug is, right? So if we do this, we should get the bug again. Yeah. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say dummy state is a human animation state. That's uninitialized, so we don't spend any CPU on it, but we're wasting stack on it. And we're just going to say fix me compiler bug. We don't get a body dependency on human animation state unless we dereference it by a dot. We don't get it just by saying state dot whatever. So probably we should just take that dependency automatically anyway. Okay, so let's, before I type that long comment, I should have made sure that that fixes it. It doesn't. Are you kidding me? What if I do this? Wow. Maybe I'm wrong about, maybe it's the guy? It was the guy. We don't get a proper body dependency on guy. Whatever, it's going to be a much shorter comment. And I'm going to go to my to-do and say fix this compiler bug, and we'll do it in a future stream. All right, that'll be a fun stream sometime, is to go through and fix all the things that came up in these streams. All right, so compiler bug. This is why I'm programming large things in this language before subjecting you to the language. Okay, so we've got a guy down there. It's weird, we're not getting it this way. It's so weird, because we're never actually using the body of the guy. We're only using a pointer to it. That's probably what, so probably the real bug is, we are not actually using the contents of guy because we just pass a pointer. This is so stupid because I'm about to take guy out. But someone thinks we need the body for some body of guy for some reason. Someone erroneously thinks. So the problem is, I'm about to take guy out, right? We're going to turn him into entity because, let's see if, this persists when it's an entity and not a guy. I suspect it may. So now we have to fix whoever breaks from that. So entities, line 800. Wow, that weed whacker noise is bugging me. Undeclared identifier entity. What? We call it E and not entity. Okay. So, let's see if I broke anything. Who knows? I mean, could always just crash straight up. All right. Well, what am I even doing now? Oh, right. So we wanted to get rid of... Oh, and I didn't even need to take this dependency. Well, I think my policy is I'm going to wait till this bug comes up again later. Because I just don't want to slow down. I could archive this. Yeah, okay, I'll be responsible. And I'll archive this procedure as it was. I mean, I'm going to have to like, yeah, whatever. So we're going to archive the old version of that for fixability purposes. We don't, oh, maybe we do need this actually, never mind. Because guy will depend on entity anyway. So we may, nope, we don't need it. We don't need it. All right. So, whoops. So now we need to go human animation state to animation state. So what we have version control for, isn't it? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that there's other issues. So if I don't fix that bug immediately, and I work on other things in the compiler that like change other features in the language that are syntactical or something, then rolling back to the old user code won't, you know, that code will no longer work with the new compiler, right? It's one of these issues that happens when something's in development. If that doesn't happen, then yeah, we'll see. We'll have that stream where we go and try to repro that case. It's in the file. All right, so now I want to do a thing called animation state that just has this stuff. I'm going to say animation state is an animation state. And we're just going to do this. Okay, this doesn't go in animation state. That's a gameplay state. We're still gonna want to do that rename. Someone remind me to do this rename if I don't remember. So I'm not going to do a using because I want this to not really be an inheritance situation. I just want to have a thing. So we've got an entity, we've got a node index, we've got some animation names that we use to reference the tags, and then we've got this recovery stuff. So that's fine. And then when we call something like send message, let's say I don't like two-letter variable names, but whatever. All right. So we just do that. And then in addition to send mess, that's not the only send message, is it? I guess it is. So in addition to send message, we had the per frame update thing. What was that called? Animation graph per frame update. Per frame update. Who calls simulate calls that? So that also needs to call e dot. I should rename this to human animation state. All right. So, right. So in graph, we want to change these to animation states. And this is no longer true. And this is animation state. And hopefully we have nothing human specific in this code. We probably do. And I'm probably going to have to deal with how to pull it out. But whatever. Let's see what happens. Entity is not a member of human animation state. Okay, that's back here. This is fine. This This is that same line that we were editing before. S dot animation state dot entity and S dot animation state dot animation names. Hey, it compiled. Yay, okay. All right. I guess I don't need someone to remind me to do that rename because I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it now. People, does everyone understand what's going on? I don't know if anyone knows what's going on anymore. So we're going to go back here. So we're going to call this gameplay state, which is going to break a bunch of people who refer to state. Let's just do that one thing at a time. And then we'll rename the variable itself. Okay. That was easy. And then we're going to call this current gameplay state. I'm going to replace current state with current gameplay state. Yes, yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh. All right. That's fine. Get rid of that. Would I mind summarizing what I've been working on? Well, we started out the stream by improving robustness for when the animation graph is hot loaded and animations are playing on guys, what happens and how do you recover from that? Then we isolated that to only development mode because it had performance ramifications. And then I just went around and generally did some cleanup and refactoring. Speaking of which, I thought I was about to take a 5-minute break, but this whole animation set, I don't think we use that anymore, right? So way back a couple days ago, we said this is deprecated soon. I don't think we use that anymore. Like, I don't think we use any of this stuff because that was for the old hard-coded version that was just supposed to bridge us into the future, and that's done. So let's get rid of all this. That's great. And there, and there, and all this stuff goes away, and this goes away. In fact, ensure updated just goes away. Okay, wait. No, 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 okay. No, I guess it's true, because we look up animations by name all the time. Okay, so the purpose of this was that we had the animations cached in pointers, but for now we're looking them up by name, and if we ever want to optimize that, we'll re-optimize it a different way. So the code just goes. ensure updated. So I don't need to track these dirty assets anymore or anything. Like really? All this goes away. All of it goes away. Are you kidding me? You get a car, you get a car, everybody gets a car. We may need to bring the equivalent of that stuff back in the future, but we're not going to do it for a while. And it'll be done in a different way. So, you know, sometimes you write bridge code, the job of which is just to get you to where you want to go. And keep you in a working system. All right. That's great. We're down back under 56,000 lines of code. So I think I'm going to take a 5-minute break at least. Let's call it an 8 to 10 minute break. And then I'm going to come back and we'll start doing graphical things. Yeah, we'll start doing graphical things. Ten-minute break. When we come back, we start working on visualizing aspects of the animation system.